CNBC says Tennessee is the worst state in America to live in. Yet, thousands of people continue to move to Tennessee every year. So what's going on? Today, Shad and I are going to talk about the rankings and what we've learned helping hundreds of families moving to Northeast Tennessee. So Shad, let's talk about that CNBC article.
Yeah, it's big news going around right now. But so anyway, let's just break this down. I actually learned some things as well. I'm sure we all will. CNBC came out with the top states for business in 2026. Now, they've been doing this poll for about 20 years, and every year they rank these states by their business practices and whatnot, or how favorable they are for business. Tennessee ranked 9th best in the country this last year, and is ranked as high as 3rd in the country as little as 3 years ago. But as part of these rankings, they break them down into categories. And so these 10 broad categories can include things like infrastructure or the economy, the workforce, quality of life, cost of doing business, things like that. But this is where it gets really interesting is Tennessee didn't do so well in the quality of life category. We scored just 64 out of 290 points. Which puts us dead last, the worst state in the country to live in.
Yeah, and I thought what was interesting too, we talked about this earlier, is Texas didn't do too well either. It was rated as number 2 worst state in the United States. So I looked online, and Census ACS data from 2020 to 2025 shows that about 3 million people moved across the country to Texas. So somebody must think Texas is okay.
Yeah, they included other states like Georgia, Alabama, Indiana, where I'm from. So I'm 2 for 2 for places not to live. But places like that, which, migration-wise are not the states that people are moving away from. But as part of this poll, part of these rankings, these are the worst states to live in. So let's break this down a little bit. So they heavily penalized Tennessee for really 3 distinct areas. Worker protections, and what they categorize as inclusive laws and legislation, but also public safety. And they specifically cited data from the United Health Foundation showing we have the 3rd highest rate of drug deaths, FBI statistics showing that we have one of the highest violent crime rates in the country. Some real valid numbers in some sense. It does look pretty bad. However, let's break this down just real quickly, at least when it comes to crime. Little do we know that the city of Memphis alone, which is only 9% of the entire population in the state of Tennessee, is 40% of the entire state's violent crime and 30% of the state's property crime. But here's a geographical oddity just to consider when we talk about Memphis and we talk about Northeast Tennessee. The state of Tennessee is so wide that if you drove in a straight line, Johnson City is actually closer to Canada and Jacksonville, Florida, than it is to Memphis.
Yeah, and I'm always reminded that because I've mentioned this before in other videos. My mom will call me, honey, there's terrible weather coming your way. And then I'll look at the weather forecast and it's over in Nashville or Memphis. And I'm like, that's like 4 or 5 hours away. Just keep in mind, it's such a wide state. We're in 2 different time zones.
Yeah. So these numbers are real, but, look past the headlines to try to really dive deeper and try to figure out what is it they're really getting at here with this poll. Because a lot of people, especially online, if you've even came across this headline, there's a lot of negative comments towards CNBC and coming up with this poll to begin with.
Yeah, what we're seeing is people are voting with their moving trucks. In other words, they're packing up, moving their families, their kids, their pets, their jobs, everything they own across the country. So that's important. It's telling that people are finding maybe something of value in these states that CNBC is not seeing as value. So just in the numbers alone from 2022 to 2025, U-Haul ranked Tennessee the top 5 states to move to. 2026, Coastal Moving Services also ranked Tennessee the 4th most popular state to live in the country. And 250,000 people have moved here in the last 5 years. So I thought it would be interesting, Shad. I looked up what states are people leaving, and I think you and I could figure that out because we talk to those people every day. Mm-hmm. But Consumer Affairs was just one report that I looked at, and the top 5 outbound states heading to other states would be California, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and Washington, which was no surprise to us. Now, what's interesting, all the states that people are leaving, they were not on CNBC's list of the worst states to live in. So I guess it just goes to say that although CNBC's numbers, they're correct, what they looked at as a quality of life, the things that were important, are maybe very different to a lot of other people in the U.S. So why are people choosing states like Tennessee, and specifically Northeast Tennessee? We made a little list here of what people keep telling us when we talk with them on the phone, and they send us emails, we meet with them, and they actually move here. So people want their money to go further.
Yeah, part of that first category, obviously, lower cost of living, no state income tax. We point these things out all the time. Lower property taxes, lower utility bills, lower gas prices. You can get more house for the money compared to the average in the United States, and maybe even including some acreage with your house or mountain views or water views. But also, according to Consumer Affairs, Tennessee ranks 4th in the country with the lowest tax burden, and the 8th in the country with the lowest cost of living. So that's just one category of people making their decision to move here.
Another thing is they just want a different lifestyle. A slower pace of life, less traffic, less a commute. They like the small towns. We hear that over and all over. They want to be surrounded by natural beauty.
Well, that's pretty easy to do here for sure, because we're reminded every day, right? The Appalachian Mountains, the Blue Ridge portion of the mountains are in our area. The rolling farmland that we talk about as you drive around and witness the general area as a whole, the rivers, the lakes, the mountain towns, the historic towns, it doesn't get old.
That's for sure. And if you've been to Tennessee, Tennessee is a beautiful state, but what a lot of people say is, wow, when they got to Northeast Tennessee, they're overwhelmed by the beauty. And a lot of people are moving from beautiful states. So they're looking for another beautiful state. Mm-hmm. Another thing people look for moderate seasons.
I think spring and fall is actually the longest seasons here, at least that's how I feel it to be, which are my 2 favorite seasons, and most people's as well. But, we do have all 4 seasons here, generally mild winters, and we do get some snow, but we don't get 6 months of it.
In the winter, there'll be many, many, many more days with no snow on the ground than having snow on the ground. And we both decided that we would like fall to last 9 months a year.
Yeah.
The weather is a big draw, whether you're coming from, California, Florida, maybe Wisconsin.
Sure.
It's a good mix. Mm-hmm. Another thing is outdoor recreation. And, we're a great destination for outdoor recreation. You can hike, bike, camp, kayak, boat. You play golf year-round, horseback riding. You can even ski in the winter, go over to Gatlinburg or North Carolina.
Yeah.
Just endless amount of outdoor activities. So there's no shortage of that. A lot of people like the sense of community. They mention, especially when they come here, that it kind of feels like you're stepping back in time a little bit. People are waving at you, helping you out. Your neighbors. We've talked about all these things many times on our channel, and we know our neighbors too. So, and there's a lot of community events and farmers markets and festivals, so it creates just a really special vibe.
Yeah, I was even the other day, we were going to go to the farmers market in Jonesborough. We didn't, but afterwards, I noted there was a little mini car show downtown Jonesborough. I didn't even know it was going to be going on. So yeah, there's always fun stuff to do in the towns around here.
And a lot of great things to do for your community too. Yeah. So, mm-hmm. And last but not least, something that people really look at when they're considering Tennessee and Northeast Tennessee, they're looking for less city and state government control. A good example of this, they just want to have more control over their property. They may be coming from somewhere, states like California where, they had the wildfires and people are struggling to rebuild their homes. I watch a gal on YouTube and she's going to remodel her kitchen and it's going to take like a year and a half to get a permit.
Well, I actually had a client in from Hawaii not too long ago, and he said building his house, it took 18 months to get all the permit process done. And he'd already had all of his blueprints, architectural renderings. He had everything set to go. It still took 18 months to get his. And we recently put a screen porch on the back of our house And the day I went in to fill out the application, I walked out with the permit. So a little bit different story here, for sure.
Yeah, a little more relaxed. We do have rules and regulations and not the wild, wild west, but that's something people really look at. Another thing is a lot of families want to raise their children in a different environment. They just like, again, the rules, regulation, city, local government, it just fits for their lifestyles better. And a lot of people are moving away from metropolitan areas where there's issues with, huge encampments of, homeless and things like that. So that's a big thing. So what's our takeaway? Well, CNBC isn't necessarily wrong. Everyone has their own idea of what they want and what they value in their life. And, if Tennessee was such a awful state, I don't think people would be coming to live here. And the wonderful thing about our country is we have so many states to choose from. There's at least one or two that you would love and will fit your quality of life, what you're looking for. So if you think Northeast Tennessee might be a fit for you and your family, I'm Stephanie and this is Shad with the Freck Group at Greater Impact Realty. Our team specializes in helping people that are moving across the country to Northeast Tennessee. So reach out to us, give us a call, text, or email. We'd be happy to help you. And subscribe and follow our channel, Living in Johnson City, Tennessee, to learn more about living in this beautiful area. And Shad, like I always say, it's never too soon to start planning your move. We hope to see you here in Northeast Tennessee.